the organization that you represent, and how many years you've been a CHSP reviewer. And then you'll ask the other members of your team to introduce themselves in the same manner. Last person to introduce themselves again will be Crystal. And then Crystal, you will let them know that they have, the parameters about making sure that when they respond to a question, that they keep it short, succinct, because we want to have an opportunity to ask as many questions as possible. So you'll give that little spiel, but what you'll do is tell them that they can introduce themselves very briefly. We're talking name and your role in the organization. That's it. And as soon as they introduce themselves, the 20-minute time starts. Okay. And the first question, as you know, Madam Chairperson, is to ask about the COVID. How has COVID-19 affected their ability to effectively implement that program? We want to know the implications for the program itself. One of the things that, is kind of mixed issues going on. I've been told, for example, that the school system is saying that in the fall and maybe the entire school year, they will not allow visitors on campus, which makes good sense if you think about if you let people in and out, there's no control. And so the only way you can, have some safety of your population is that it's consistently the same people. You can trace where it came from or whatever. So therefore, when we talk about that question, it's very important to get some good, solid responses, because some of these programs may or may not be able to operate, right? Then you have some programs that may be, because of the school system changes, some programs are going to be even more important. So it's a lot of ripple effects. It's a lot of unknown effects going on, but we already see the writing on the wall. I'm sure you guys have heard all week long since the latter part of last week. Florida is on the top of the international news now. As fast becoming the epicenter for COVID. Unfortunately, similar to Miami because of a lot of, I'm on camera, but let's just say some decisions that were made probably would be very differently had I been the leader of the troop. Mm-hmm. But because of those decisions that were made, we're having some serious ramification, including we get updates and briefs every day as a city staffer. You probably guys do too because of your jobs. But we had an uptick in 2 days of 62 cases in 2 days. When we were running an average about 1 or 2 a week. And now we have 60 some in 2 days. That tells you the community spread is starting to really rapidly. We were notified yesterday that several, almost, and I stopped counting. It seemed like about 10 restaurants were forced to close down because employees tested positive for COVID-19 virus. Their staff did.
I'm sorry, I really don't mean to be rude. It's past 9 o'clock in American Central.
Okay, thank you.
In the room.
Okay, thank you very much, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, and I will disappear, Madam Chairperson. You're on. Thank you, Virginia.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll start with introductions, and I will start with myself. My name is Marilyn McGee. I work for Florida State University, and I've been a member of the Citizen Review Team for 5 years. And now I'm going to call on Marie.
Hi, my name is Marie.
Okay.
Is I muted?
No, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Marie Bryant. I work for Hometown Leon. I've been on the Citizen Review Team for 3 years.
Thank you. James?
Good morning, James Maduro Jr. I work for the city of Tallahassee. I've been with the team for 1 year and I have 15 years of grant experience.
Thank you. Ryan?
Good morning. My name is Ryan Meadows, and I am with Florida Virtual School, and I have been on this grant review committee for 3 years.
Thank you. Yubi?
Good morning. I'm Yubi Brantley. I work with the state of Florida Department of Management Services, and I've been a team member for 3 years.
Thank you. Renee?
Good morning. I'm Renee Jansen, work for Leon County Schools, a community advocate, and I've been with CHP 6 years.
Thank you. And Crystal?
Hi, my name is Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Insurance Agency. I've been on the CHSP board for 7 years now. I will also be your timekeeper today. What we're going to do is we will have Dr. McGee start off with your first question. Prior to that, I'll allow you guys to do introductions. If you would, please just limit it to your name and your role within the organization. And if you guys want to do the introductions, then we'll kick it off to Dr. McGee to start off the questions.
All right, we'll turn it over to Second Harvest to begin the introductions. And I'll just ask real quickly, if you're not speaking, if you could mute your mic because we're getting a lot of feedback.
All right, well, good morning. My name is Monique Ellsworth. I'm the CEO here at Second Harvest of the Big Bend. And sitting in the room with me is Rob Thaler. He's our Chief Administrative Officer. And we are lucky to have on our call also Ms. Joanna Oates. She is the chair of my board, and Ramsey Sin is the past president and chair of the Second Harvest board also. So thank you all, the staff and board members from Second Harvest, for being here this morning, and for all the committee members. Thank you all for your time, your commitment to our community, the strong stewardships that you have over important funding that supports the work being done locally. As a quick overview of Second Harvest work and what we're doing, that would be, we're the Food Bank of North Florida. We oversee 11 counties of Leon County.
I'm sorry, I hate to do that to you, but Crystal, you know, we have to follow the protocols, okay? So this is only thing right now is for introductions only. Just your name and the role that you play in the organization, and then Dr. McGee will start the process after that.
Right, Dr. McGee, back to you.
Thank you. Sorry about that interruption.
Thank you. And we're going to actually start off today's session to get some idea of how COVID-19 has impacted this program in particular, and your ability to implement it going forward, or any challenges that you face right now that may impact how you can implement it down the road. So if you could share that information with us.
Yes, ma'am. So prior to COVID, Second Harvest, the primary way that we were moving food into our community was through our program partner agencies who understand and work with local neighborhoods, providing food in a number of different ways, either through some of the programs that we have, be it child nutrition, feeding children, senior nutrition, feeding seniors, or pantry programs, feeding anyone who might come to those nonprofits needing food on designated days when they're open. And the first couple weeks of COVID, of course, Second Harvest was working really closely with its partners, trying to understand what were they seeing, what were the new needs that they were recognizing, were they getting phone calls of new individuals that they've never served before needing food. All of that was happening. In addition to that, what we were finding is that twofold, the volunteer individuals who help support all the work done by Second Harvest and its partner agencies is a large volunteer base, and our base here at Second Harvest in our warehouse and helping with our distributions largely mirrors and sometimes is the same individuals as the folks actually helping at our partner agency sites. Who were largely seniors. So the senior citizens in our community were helping with a lot of the food distribution at the warehouse here and with our nonprofit partners. And as we learned more about COVID and the particular ways that it was impacting the senior population, we quickly saw both on site at our warehouse and throughout all of our partner agencies a sharp decline in the number of volunteers that they were getting to support the food distributions that they were working to provide to the neighborhood that they resided in. And what that led to was within 2 to 3 weeks of COVID kind of becoming something we recognized was not going to be a short stint in our community, was over 10% of our partner agencies closed their doors. And that meant that the way that our food was being pushed to the end user, the individual that we're hoping to serve, we were really kind of severed from that individual. So Second Harvest had to quickly revision the way that we were going to get food out to our community. We have of course, a responsibility not only to Leon County, but to counties outside of Leon County. And we knew that the same experience was happening there as well. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing these direct distributions where our trucks, our staff, our volunteers were getting food into the neighborhoods that we could identify, into the regions of our county that we knew were underserved. And the direct distribution model was kind of the one that we either learned from our surrounding network of network of food pantries as being something, or food banks being the model that was going to be best utilized and most quickly put into action, because it was something that Second Harvest could oversee. So what you all probably have seen in the news was that we are doing 8 distributions every single week. 5 of those are in our outlying counties, but 3 of them, nearly half, are actually right here in Tallahassee. So we are serving Leon County 3 days a week with our direct distribution. And that is on top of the support that we provide our partner agencies here in Leon County, providing them with food. I will say that a lot of our partner agencies in Leon County, because they're kind of our stronger partner agencies, have increased the number of days that they are operating, expanding their hours. Good News Outreach is an example of that. They had a pantry that was open 1 day a week. We worked really closely with them. We're able to increase the amount of food that we were passing to Good News Outreach, and they are now open 5 days a week with pantry services. So Second Harvest, we worked with our partner agencies to identify those who could expand their hours, increase the number of days that they were open, or we identified pockets of our community where access to the food was going to be difficult. That was all kind of phase 1. We then spent a lot of time listening and learning from a lot of the grassroots community leaders, being connected, thankfully, through the city of Tallahassee and Leon County, connecting us with neighborhood leadership throughout our community, who identified that there were transportation limitations. There were additional barriers that people in our community had experienced in receiving the food at those 3 distributions that we were originally doing at big venues like the Civic Center, at FAMU, at TCC. And we, since then, have really adjusted the way that we are working our mobile distributions, our direct distributions, by doing very focused neighborhood distributions. And the way that looks like is even this week, today, in about an hour and a half.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. It's such great information, but I need to make sure we move on to our questions and answers because we only have a certain amount of time allotted. So if any of our team wants to ask questions, please feel free to do so. Okay, I actually have a question. Last year, you guys brought on a little over 20 different partner organizations in order to assist with your distribution. How has that changed with different agencies closing specifically for the Promise Zone? How are you guys getting out into that area now for the distribution?
So thank you. That was what the next thing I was about to say was what we're doing even as early as today and this week is that we're doing direct distributions today in Frenchtown. We're going to be doing distributions at the Urban League tomorrow. We've created a really strong partnership with the Providence neighborhood and their neighborhood association president. So we're going to be doing something directly in the Providence neighborhood, and we're serving the south side at off of Orange Avenue on Friday. So what the work we're doing is kind of identifying those grassroots leadership positions that kind of innately develop within neighborhoods where those individuals are speaking directly to us about the need that they have identified. So we're really kind of empowering this neighborhood level advocacy. Something that we've recognized is that the impact of COVID has disproportionately impacted the Promise Zone area. These are low income, minority, lack of resource neighborhoods. And what we have found is that there's an incredible need for us to continue our work in these particular areas. For example, Leon County as a whole, 30% of Leon County is food insecure. But if we just look at the Promise Zone before COVID, 62% of our Promise Zone is food insecure. So a hyper focus funding through this particular project would really assist us in continuing the focus work that we are doing currently, but could expand with additional resources.
I have a question in terms of fundraising or figuring out other ways to meet the increased demand that you have. What are some of the things that you've done to bring in additional support?
So we have had several online campaigns kick off, and about 60 days ago, we had, you might have seen a 24, or I guess it was just a 12-hour telethon that we put together very quickly with WTXL. We were able to raise $75,000 in one day, which was absolutely incredible. It's the first time TXL had done something like this, the very first time Second Harvest had implemented something like this. We also, you guys will see kickoff next week. Is going to be a campaign that we're going to do for an entire month, where we're going to be focusing on child nutrition and child welfare and food to end child hunger during the school year by doing a very specific backpack campaign, so that we can educate our community on child nutrition, child hunger, and the need for a community to kind of take on the responsibility to make sure our children are thriving during the school year, knowing that children are hungry today, and on August 9th, if hopefully school starts back up, they're going to be hungry then also, and we need to be planning as a community for ways to meet and assist those children and those families so that they're not having to make those difficult conversations. But we're sending out mailers. We have active campaigns on our Facebook, our website, but we've engaged our donor network in ways in the past 6 months that I don't think that we have historically pushed and asked and requested, and we've really kind of hit a really steady beated drum of requests and information going out to our network.
Sorry, Dr. McGee, it's Ryan.
No, go ahead.
I just had a follow-up question to that. I noticed that great part of this is buying food for the backpack program. We've been learning, just minute by minute, it changes. I work in the education industry. What will you guys do if you can't actually get into the schools? How will you give those backpacks or that food to the students and continue that education awareness, in nutritional education awareness to those particular students?
Thank you. So not to make lemonade out of the lemons that is COVID-19, but the type of partnerships that have developed have been extraordinary. So our relationship with Leon County Schools is the closest today that it has been in the history of Second Harvest of the Big Bend. So I feel no concern at all that between us, Superintendent Rocky Hanna, Dr. Michelle Gale, we will find a way to continue moving our backpacks through the distributions that we even do at the school level. So we have a commitment to the children. We know that we have a commitment from Leon County Schools to make sure that the children get food. So we don't have I personally have no concern that when we are purchasing backpack food, it will continue to go to the children who need that backpack program food. And to operationalize that, just in case that wasn't clear, distributions are currently happening at school through drive-through type distribution models. That would just continue, and we'd make sure that those food items were getting out to those children.
I have a question in terms of, so if COVID goes on for an extended amount of time, we continue through the fall and flu and everything, do you ever see a point where the demand for food could be greater than your ability to get it? And if so, are there other channels you can use to bring in additional food?
So I think that we look a lot to things like mapping the meal gap, understanding. This is like work that is done by our statewide group Feeding America, where we learn really closely, almost on like a census level, block level information on what the meal gap is, how many people in our community and where in our community they are missing food. We consistently are not meeting the need, the demand of our community. We have not eliminated hunger in Leon County, and that need has only increased. So what we are doing outside of requests like CHSP is close network and partnership with the state and with USDA. So we're getting food through FDACS, a relationship that we have with the Department of Agriculture, working on food distribution and opportunities with them. We also have opportunities that consistently present themselves with Feeding America. So we're part of a kind of like a strong voice that food insecurity needs to be a primary focus at the state and federal level, ensuring that we aren't looking at only leaning on the resources of local municipalities. Although support like this is essential, we recognize that the need might exceed what the gifts this team could provide an agency. So we are making sure that we are making our needs known and making requests elsewhere to serve our community.
How are you guys handling the issue with being able to obtain volunteers? I've noticed that you consistently every year have increased your volunteer hours. How is that going to impact you guys this year with being able to get volunteers due to COVID?
So early on, we weren't seeing a huge problem with our volunteer workforce. We're seeing lots more than we could possibly handle come in. And about maybe 6 weeks ago, we saw a sharp decline. And I think that was as people learned about the social distancing. There was a lot more fear around the virus being contracted if you were in smaller confined spaces. So what Second Harvest very quickly did was we found face masks, ordered far more hand sanitizer, adjusted the way that we had volunteers work within our warehouse, even rented giant tents that we put up in our parking lot so that volunteers could work in our parking lot in an outdoor area. So I think that we've pushed really hard what we're doing to make sure that volunteers are safe when on site with us, which has helped during that interim because, like you said, we might have seen a shortage of volunteers, especially as the volume of need increased. We called in the National Guard, kind of speaking to the earlier point that we are looking at resources wherever they might fall. So we've pulled in the National Guard and they are here with us. But we've seen a resurgence in the last probably 3 weeks of our volunteers, where we are once again extending our volunteer options into the weekends. So last weekend we had a full Saturday. This weekend we have a full Saturday. So we're seeing a real healthy return in our volunteers. I think that there was a 30-day period in the between the month of April and May where we had 2,000 hours of volunteer time that was logged, which is immense. In our entire year, usually we're seeing something like 16,000. So in 30 days, us to get 2,000 of those hours was huge. So we have a lot of support locally from people in our community.
Quick question, because I know time is running out. I saw that one of your goals was to increase distribution by 1 million meals. And based on what you said and some of the difficulties that you're foreseeing, where are you on that projection to get the additional million meals or 66% increase in that delivery system?
So
what we're remaining. 5 minutes.
Okay.
I can still answer. Okay. So what we're doing is we're expanding the geographic area that we are doing these direct distributions in. So we recognize that partner agencies, for example, that might have closed in more rural parts of our county, we're wanting to be able to do distributions there. We're wanting to find pockets and regions that our partners have closed their doors. What's great about the Promise Zone project is that the geographic area has now doubled in size, allowing more of a where it's a broader net that we can cast to make sure that we are pushing this food into a larger area that really better represents where the need exists in our community. So we feel confident that this goal will be achievable.
All right. Thank you.
I have one quick question. I was wondering why you are involved in the community. Have you found any language barriers, just like in the Bond community with all the Congolese families? Also on Highway 20, a lot of the Mexican families in the community.
So we were in the Bond neighborhood, and actually we were at the Holton Street site, not this past Thursday, but the Thursday before that, doing a very specific distribution there. And you're right, there was a lot of Congolese families that were attending the distribution. A lot of their children, actually, because they're enrolled in Leon County schools, speak English. So the child was doing a lot of communication between us and the parent. And the same thing, I know that there are several Spanish speaking families that came through our distributions. I remember like 4 that came through, one that we had out on Highway 20. And the child again was kind of the conduit between, and I can only speak for myself, between myself and the families. I was asking questions to learn more about what they needed. The child ended up kind of being that the translator between myself and the mother that I was trying to talk to.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I only have a small little technical question. I was looking at your 990, and it seems like there was an extension until May 15th. Has that issue been resolved? Have you been able to renew your nonprofit status and file those taxes?
Yes, sir, we have, and that new 990 has been filed and is uploaded to the portal, so you should have access to it.
All right, thank you.
All right, any additional questions? Okay.
All right, we thank you guys so much for all of your time today, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
The next program is from Good News. This is a new program, so you won't see an award letter for this particular program in your profile.
Hey, Pat, just real quick, when filling these out, we do all each correct? I just wanted to refresh my memory. Right?
Yes. The assessment guide is for each agency.
That's what I
And
thought.
it allows you up to I think 4 programs, so that the columns that say A, B, C, D. So you have one section that's only agency wide and the other one is program specific. So you can actually, I think every agency on this team is only submitted one program for review, right? So
there was the other one, I forget which one it was, Boys and Girls Club, right?
Yes.
They were going to do 2, but I think they've only done 1, right? Am I correct?
They may have multiple locations, but it's one program. Mm-hmm.
Right. So on that, just so I'm aware, because I was filling some of it out last week, there shouldn't be, for the ones that we did last week, it should only be program name A. There should be B, C, D, or E.
Right.
And even for this week too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
For the epilepsy organization, seemed like they had 2 client services and promise.
Which agency that you
epilepsy?
I mean, look, epilepsy should have 1. Let's see.
It was the Children's Home Society that had 2 but dropped out of 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Pat, I have a question. How come this program isn't in the senior group?
That's what you need to ask them. That's a good question.
Okay.
I'm trying to look at, we did epilepsy last week. So yeah, epilepsy was last week. I'm looking at the right one. Yeah, they just had, epilepsy only had 1 program. But what was that question, Krista? I was reading and answering you and thinking about you at the same time. I know I answered you. What did I just answer? Yeah.
She said she was right. So, it was Children's Home Society had 2.
Yeah, but going back to that point, I don't want to forget that you have to ask anyone that question who's on, just like epilepsy is already getting funding on the team for services for disabilities to serve the entire county. Okay, so that's a question you need to ask. If they are designing a program uniquely to serve the Promise Zone, That's different. But if it's the same program and they're already getting funded, that's when you have to ask those deeper questions. Okay.
Is there a list that we can see if they've applied in the other categories?
Yeah, I'm your I can tell you. I can tell you that all you have to do is ask me that question.
Has this group applied in other categories for this similar services?
They are on the senior services team, so you need to ask them how this differs because I have not had a chance to read all of the applications because of the expedited time. But you need to ask them that question. And then when we deliberate, just ask me and I'll let you know all of the all of the programs that are on different teams already. So you can kind of make that distinction. And with that, I think they're ready. We start at 9:30. So Virginia, you can let everyone in now. And just remind people that when they do the COVID question, 5 minutes or less.
Okay.
Okay.
Potential programs, none of them are funded. So let me grab another chair so I can sit off screen.
All right. Is everyone in the room? All right. I'm Marilyn McGee. I'm the team leader for Team 10 for the Promise Zone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to start with introductions, and I'll start by briefly introducing myself, and then the rest of the team will introduce themselves, ending with the timekeeper. My name is Marilyn McGee. I work at Florida State University, and I've been a member of the Citizens Review Team for 5 years. Yubi?
Good morning. I'm UB Brantley, work with the state of Florida Department of Management Services, and I've been with the review team for 3 years.
Thank you. Ryan?
Good morning. I'm Ryan Meadows. I'm with Florida School, and I've been with the Citizens Review Team for 3 years.
Thank you. James?
James Madura Jr., City of Tallahassee. I've been with the review team for 1 year and I have 15 years of grant experience.
All right. Marie?
Hi, my name is Marie Bryant. I work at Hotel Beyond. I've been with the Citizen Review Team for 3 years.
Thank you. Renee?
Hi, I'm Renee Gatson. I work with Leon County Schools. I'm a advocate for the community, and I've been with CHP 6 years.
Thank you. Crystal?
Hi, my name is Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Insurance Agency. I've been with CHSP for 7 years now. I will also be your timekeeper today. We have 20 minutes allotted for questions and answers. Before your time starts, we'll allow you guys to make introductions. If you could please just limit it to your name and your role within the organization, and then I will turn it over to Dr. McGee to kick off your first question.
I'm Donald Parks. I'm Executive Director of Good News Outreach.
Okay, thank you. Did you want the other person in the room to introduce herself?
Yes.
Oh, I apologize. I'm Rebecca Howard. I'm the Director of Operations for Good News Outreach.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. All right, well, we're going to start today by asking you, how has COVID-19 impacted your operations for this particular program, and do you see it impacting you going forward? And if you could keep your response to 5 minutes or less, that would be great.
Great. Well, first of all, Promise Zone is a new program for us, but the clients that we intend to serve certainly are not new. So the impact of COVID-19 on our food and senior programs has been an increased demand for services. For example, our food distribution increased 380% from January through April. Our seniors have been even more isolated than usual with the fears and concerns about COVID-19. We have ceased going into their homes to deliver food and have dropped the food off on their doorsteps. We have seen a marked increase in calls from seniors wanting to enter the program. We have tried to respond to COVID-19 through things like the DoorDash program to increase services to our seniors. We also increased our food pantry from 1 day a week to 5 days a week for 2 months to address additional demand.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to open the floor up to questions from my team members.
I have a question regarding your administrative costs. They're over 20%. Is that due to this being a new program? And in what ways are you guys looking to reduce those costs?
Well, a big part of the costs are going to be administrative because of the fact that this is a volunteer program and we're asking for 20% of a volunteer coordinator position because we hope to increase our services beyond simply food distribution, but also providing ancillary services to seniors, such as a phone buddies program. Right now, the director of operations is coordinating food and seniors. We've asked for 5% of that salary, and our pantry assistant is responsible for food in terms of disaggregating the food when it comes in from Second Harvest. And it is, to your question, a new program.
Based on the information in your application, I currently see 2 clients in the census tracts for the promise zones. Is that all of the clients that you currently have in the promise zone, or is this based on something else?
Yes. Hi, this is Rebecca Howard. No, since we are not currently, we don't have a promise zone program going. And since it was asking for the demographics from the year before, putting a 0 in it refused to accept that. It wouldn't let you go on to the next screen. So I called it in and Anita said, just put in a 2 and explain it later. So that's my explanation.
Okay.
We do serve a lot of clients in the promise zone already. But as we found out by signing people up for the DoorDash program, there are a ton that need it still. That we just came upon pockets of isolated neighborhoods that we have never even touched. And they got back to us and wanted to know. So thanks.
Okay.
We've also added 58 clients at Casa Calderon, which is within the promise zone since COVID-19.
I actually have a question regarding duplication of funding, and specifically as it relates to the senior services teams and separately with the Promise Zone team. So how are you guys handling that with, as far as your grants and awards and stuff like that? Is this something that it's being duplicated on the senior team?
There are a lot of parallels, but they are not duplications because we have a different set of dreams for the Promise Zone people. We want to get them more involved with ECHO's case management. We really want to help them stay in their homes rather than just deliver groceries to them. And we deliver groceries, but we want reading glasses and can openers and, the life management stuff. Can you change the light bulb on my porch? All of those things that are so essential. We need to work it in a smaller program than we would have just by adding them to our senior program. These people need specific help starting from scratch. They're going to have a deeper set of needs than our usual seniors. So we want to be aware of that and have this tailored to their needs rather than just bringing them along in an existing program.
I have a question. Is there another agency that you could partner with that currently serves this group in any way that may provide those types of services?
There are meals that are being brought into some seniors in the Promise Zone, but to have your groceries delivered without charge to your house, have phone buddies calling you, have someone to call and say, I don't know what happened, but my paring knife just disappeared. We can respond to those things because it's a small program. We're looking at keeping it fairly small so that we can be more responsive to the individual needs. We're not trying to serve everybody, but these are people that really need special attention.
I have a question about fundraising activities. I see that there's only here the prayer breakfast, which is scheduled for October. What else are you doing to kind of get out in the community and try to solicit more donations for the program?
Well, just this morning, I was on the program for the Sunrise Rotary Club. We have really made a strong push at private donations. We have not focused so much on grants at this point. We have currently, we were budgeted at this point in time to have $36,000 in private donations. We're at about 68,000 now. So we've almost doubled our budget. And we have found at this point, at least, that private donations is the best source for us. We do intend to work more closely with any and follow up on grant applications. We received a PPP grant. We received a lean grant. So those are 2 grants thus far for calendar year 2020.
James, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Piggyback it on understanding that there's an increased need in the promise zone and dealing with an elderly population that sometimes is a little leery about people. You know, how are you getting to communicate with the clients, the potential clients in that area? You know, especially now with the COVID-19 situation. It seems like one of the things that I always hear is that especially elderly people, they need to be communicated a little differently. They don't deal with the internet. They don't deal with a lot of newer technology. So how is your organization getting involved to make sure that that needed area is being serviced properly?
Well, we do that essentially in 2 ways, and Rebecca may want to elaborate. But when we go to a large center like Bethel Towers or more recently Casa Calderon, we work with the staff in place to get the word out. On an individual basis, what we found is that if we serve one senior, we're likely to get referrals from those neighbors, and they quickly develop a relationship of trust, and our phone traffic has increased rather dramatically. So also the volunteer routes are rather small. In this particular case, we're going to add 12 routes to serve 120 people. So each volunteer only has 10 folks. So it's been our experience that the volunteers very quickly develop a relationship of trust with their clients, and that has not proved to be a problem for us in our senior program.
And piggybacking on that real quick, I don't want to steal the thunder, but we talk about diversity a lot, especially in communities that, you know, they have to feel a certain amount of trust. How is your diversity team as far as going out and dealing with the citizens?
I would say that our diversity is not particularly strong in those senior deliveries at this point. We have picked up some diversity, but that is continues to be a challenge for us.
Okay, thank you.
Diversity of age has certainly changed with COVID-19. We have had a senior corps that's been with us for years and decades. We're now seeing more college students, and we have had some diversity through that.
All right, thanks.
Are you guys utilizing any partnerships with other agencies or other programs within the area? Have you reached out to anybody else in the Promise Zone?
We have reached out to Casa Calderon, not an agency, but a source of 58 senior clients. We co-locate with ECHO in the same building. We did that starting December 1. ECHO has 3 case managers, all of whom are a minority, and we try to work with ECHO to communicate with our clients in a way so they are able to be referred to other agencies as well, depending on their need if it goes beyond food. We have not specifically reached out. Rebecca?
I can say that we are in the process of forming a partnership with the one of the veterans associations that has a headquarters in the Promise Zone, because we started hearing about a lot of vets, and one of the questions on our new enrollment form is, are you a veteran? Because we're getting a lot more veteran stuff. So we're getting referrals from a lot of people, and we go back to them and ask them for information on their clients so that we can better help those that they already know are there that need more and more. I hope that helps answer the question.
We also have partnered with Big Ben 211 in the DoorDash program. We delivered 207 referrals to them. So some of that is in the promise zone, but not exclusively.
Okay, I'm looking at your outcome data measures. How are you guys, I mean, other than just volunteer feedback, how are you coming to the high percentage rates that you are, as far as like 90% of your 120 clients will remain in their current living situations based on this specific program?
That is based on our experience with the senior program. We have a very high retention rate within the senior program, and we don't see any reason to anticipate that that would change within the promise zone.
I have a question regarding your desire to help your clients maintain their independence by keeping them strong enough to keep up with their self-care. Can you tell me more about that? Like, what is the current state of most of your clients? Are any of them in jeopardy, or a majority of them in jeopardy of not being able to do that? Or because they may live in a certain facility, it's not as much of an issue? So sort of give me an idea of what your general client looks like here.
Our clients obviously are elderly in their 70s and 80s. Many of their incomes are between $700 and $800 a month. So they're income challenged, they're food challenged. A recent example of other things that can happen is a gentleman whose faucet was leaking, his kitchen sink was leaking, and that developed a hole in his kitchen floor with access to rodents. And so in those cases, we try to make a response beyond food. So we sent our maintenance man there to put plywood down and to fix his sink. Rebecca?
But most of our clients are living on well below $1,000 a month. They have been in their homes for a long time. At this COVID-19, lots of them we're hearing from have not been in close contact with their families. You know, their families, they're not visiting their families aren't visiting them. They are scared, they are often disabled, they are worried about getting to the doctor. We are trying to give them someone that they can talk to on the phone. It's a contact with the outside world that's going to reach in a couple of times a month and call them. How are you doing, Miss Brady? You know, just a human contact. They're old, they're scared. They are many are disabled to some extent. They have diabetes, they're blind, they've lost limbs, you know, they run the gamut. But what brings them all together is they don't know where their next meal is coming from. They're scared about their futures. They don't want to leave their homes and the only thing they know. And I can look at their situation and say, I think the best thing would be for you to go to a senior living facility. That's not my choice, but they want to stay where they are. So we are going to try to help them do that.
And the case
You
management.
do that through food and providing other social type services?
Right. Social services, you know, if we can help them with the lights, if we can help them, you know, save enough money to get a bug bomb to get the roaches out of the kitchen, you know, whatever we can do. I haven't had anyone ask me for pesticides, but it's something that I can put on my list of things that we can send them if they need it. You know, it's a constantly changing list of things that we like to be able to provide them, because we become aware of their needs when they tell us.
And also, of course, the food comes from Second Harvest, which is USDA, and we're limited in the amount of food we can distribute. But we also have a number of churches that support us with private food drives, and we try to get materials from them, such as Ensure and Depends, and food that would be appropriate to seniors. I think the biggest threat to them is their age and their income. And there's going to be some natural attrition as they're no longer able to maintain residence.
Team, we're down to our last 4 minutes.
Yes, I have a question. I'm sorry to go back to this, but I'm trying to distinguish what's the difference between a promise zone senior and the benefits that you give. I keep hearing the word usual senior. Is there a unique difference there, or is this just an extension of the senior program and you're just growing it to the promise zone area?
Well, part of it is we're growing it to the promise zone area, and we have listed 120 clients, but we're certainly willing to serve beyond that. And again, with referrals, I think we'll increase that number. Rebecca?
But one of the best things, as I've said, is to keep it individualized. We serve close to 250 other seniors, and some of them, in fact, are in the promise zone, but they're already in our senior grocery program. But we want to have this be more focused, more accessible, more outreach than for those that are already established clients. This is a very delicate population, and I feel like by focusing on them specifically, we can bring some of the capacity that we have to help to them in a very cost-effective and timely manner.
We're also going to place a greater emphasis on the role of the 3 case managers at ECHO to really do an analysis of senior needs. And we're keeping the program by intention, as Rebecca said, relatively small so we can provide that individualized service.
All right, do we have any more questions? Okay, all right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all for serving.
We appreciate it.
Okay. You have another new program, Flyers to Prevent Homelessness, and this is totally new to me as well. Okay. This we don't currently fund this agency, so this is a total new agency. So ask your questions so you can vet the agency to see what it is and what they do and what they're proposing to do, because I don't have any data to share.
How come they didn't go through the bridge program first?
I can't answer that. You could ask them that question. We did advertise it for that. So the intent of bridge is for nonprofits that are not yet eligible to apply to CHSP. So they may not have. I mean, I don't know, but I know we sent the flyer to everyone in our data bank, but maybe they didn't get it as a new agency. Maybe they weren't registered in our data bank. James, you're on mute. You're on.
I think wasn't the bridge program relegated or to $10,000?
Yeah, it's a maximum of funding for the bridge program is $10,000 because it's a startup fund for nonprofits, right?
The reason I was saying that is because I think they requested 35. So maybe they just felt that they needed that 35, especially being new, that was really crucial for them to start up. So they probably just didn't apply because of that limitation.
That's a possibility. Mm-hmm. We start, you can take little breaks in between. So if you want to take a stretch, you go ahead and do it. The next one starts at what, 10 o'clock? Yeah, 10 o'clock. So feel free, just be back before 10. How's it going, Marie? Look like they're ready and we can start start our meeting, okay? So
All right.
welcome, Mr. Al Disu.
You're welcome. Hi, Mr. Dessou. My name is Marilyn McGee. I'm the team leader for Team 10 for the Promise Zone. We're going to start out with brief introductions of each team member, and I'm going to turn it over to my timekeeper, and she'll tell you sort of the process for today. So I'm going to start with my introduction. My name is Marilyn McGee. I work at Florida State University, and I've been a member of the Citizens Review Team for 5 years. Yubi?
Good morning. I'm UB Brantley, work for the state of Florida Department of Management Services, and I've been with the Citizens Review Team for 3 years.
Thank you. Ryan?
Good morning, I'm Ryan Meadows. I'm with Florida Virtual School and I've been with the Citizens Review Team for 3 years.
Marie?
Hi, my name is Marie Bryant. I work for Whole Child Leon. I've been with the Citizen Review Team for 3 years.
All right. Renee?
Hi, my name is Renee Gatson. I work for Leon County Schools, a community advocate, and I've been with CHP for 6 years.
James?
Good morning, James Medora Jr., City of Tallahassee. I've been with a review team for 1 year and I have 15 years of grant experience.
Thank you. And Crystal?
Hi, my name is Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Insurance Agency, and I've been on the CHSP team for 7 years now. I will also be your timekeeper today. You will have 20 minutes for our questions and answers. Prior to your time starting, we will allow you to make introductions for yourself and everyone with you. If you would, please just limit that to your name and your role within the organization. And with that, I will turn everything over to Dr. McKee.
Thank you, Crystal. All right, Mr. Dessou, if you and your team would introduce yourselves.
My name is Al Desu. I'm the president of FTPH. My role is to provide marketing and also the structural guidelines that we have implemented with the program. I'm also with my vice president, which is Ariana Waddell.
Good morning. My name is Ariana Waddell. Once again, I'm the Vice President of FTPH. And this is Mr. Daisy.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm going to start with the very first question. If you could share with us how COVID has impacted your program in terms of delivery, how it's impacting it now, and how it will impact it going forward for the program we're reviewing today. And if you could keep it to 5 minutes.
Okay, no problem.
All right.
Implement our employment program, but we're looking to also be able to implement our own guidelines wherein we can still utilize our infrastructure and be employment program within the city and the community. Although that they are certain CDC guidelines, we're looking to follow those guidelines and also implement our own to be able to, intake clients and be able to, continue our services for the community.
So if I understand you correctly, are you saying you're going to create different guidelines from the CDC guidelines to implement your program?
No, ma'am, but to follow those guidelines and make sure that those guidelines are implemented in our structure as well.
So what have the CDC guidelines, how have they impacted what you do? Can you give us an example of that?
Yes, ma'am. Well, being as though the program will consist of advertising and marketing with the guidelines as social distancing, we have actually seen a big, dip in, being able to utilize our marketing and advertising platforms, such as, not being able to I mean, many places are shut down. Many places you can't, you're not allowed in without masks, gloves, and etc. So we're very we understand the guidelines and the actual need and necessity for them, and we're looking to utilize those guidelines to help us and also be able to continue our program in this given time.
Okay, so, and you have a plan in place to address that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, I'll let others ask questions, but we would like to hear about that plan. Okay. All right.
Sue, I have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
One, how are you specifically targeting the promise zone?
With us being in the Promise Zone, we're specifically targeting them with our program, being as though if my vice president can show you the numbers of the Promise Zone, where we've found that that population is over 64,000, and we're looking to utilize our program within the percentage of at least 34,000 households are cost burden within the Leon County area during the winters, and the estimated percentage is around 65%. So we're looking to protect the promise zone by utilizing our program to stagnate those numbers, being as though if we can get the funding for the FTPH, we'll be able to not only get an initial facility where we can, intake clients, which would, you know, which would, I would say, which will, I guess the best answer would be, we would be able to target in this area where FTPH has developed. We'll be able to target those people as well.
Right, but if your target demographic is the homelessness within the promise zone, you can't exactly use the residents because you're specifically targeting homelessness. So have you looked to, and I saw in your application where it says that you're also looking to assist incarcerated individuals and transition them into the workforce. So how are you targeting those individuals as they relate specifically to the promise zone?
That will be
Specifically, what we started to see in our research is they are released back into the community, they become in fact homeless, and most of it specifically in areas within the promise zone. So we are going to utilize our resources and to target that population, as far as for them within our program. So for incarcerated individuals. So we're working towards to making sure that they have access to affordable housing and access to employment once they exit and come back into the community.
Do you guys have you thought about any collaboration efforts, for example, with the shelter? Because I know that they do have a transitional program there that helps with transitional housing and food and stuff like that. And they do touch on the job placement, but have you partnered with any other agencies in the area?
actually in the beginning, I did reach out to the Kearney Center, and I did speak with Mr. White, and we did speak on partnering with each other. But at the time, FTPH was, just really, I guess, a thought and a project that I was, but forward to partnering with to utilize the resources they have now until we can get going.
I have a question regarding your fundraising and outreach activities. In your application, it doesn't show that you've applied for any grants or pretend or are looking to do any type of fundraising activities. Is that going to change, or what other sources of funding will you have to uh, implement this program?
Yes, we look to do more fundraising. And as you know, we are a new agency, so we haven't got out there projects. The main thing that we are looking forward to do is to implement with different agencies and start fundraising. We do have many fundraising, programs and ideas that we're trying to uh, create throughout maybe quarterly or monthly basis. We're looking to at least do at least 2,500 per month in fundraising. And we're, like I said, we're a new agency, but we are looking to get more and different and acquire.
And I'd like to add to Mr. Desu, we have started grant for the economic office. We had minority business grants and other grants that are available as well. So we have actually applied for grants.
So were those to help with your operations or to help with this program?
With operations, yes, and also the program. We are looking to try to get the program up and running during this epidemic. Actually been very difficult, being as though things have changed, but we're looking to stand strong and continue, and we're very passionate about what we're trying to do for the community.
So I have one other question. So I know that you've touched on the homelessness, and the other side of that is the job placement. How are you working to address the job placement issue if you're not working with another agency to kind of collaborate and provide the housing situation? How are those individuals going to then be able to maintain a job?
We're looking to implement or to start the employment program by reaching out to different, we would call sponsors and employers that will providing the unemployed with work and part-time, help in their employment need. Once we can find, that structure we were actually for the intake facility, we can also be able to get our clients to be able to meet up with these sponsors, be able to utilize their, you know, or utilize my marketing and advertising experience to get them the employment program running. After that, we do have somewhat a checklist for each client that we can, somewhat get them to a phase level in the program. So we're really looking to um, partner with agencies, but we're also looking to reach out to that they also will need. You had something to say? What else?
Yes. We're definitely looking at to use Mr. Desu's existing relationships he has with businesses. This is what he's been, he has existing relationships. Utilize that things about one of the biggest things about FCPH is, there's very many good things, is that there's also a incentive for businesses to work with FCPH because of 501c3. They can utilize this for that is heard by the COVID epidemic, but that's even more reason for the whole. That's the reason the services. 10% of revenue for businesses with business with less than 5 million revenue to you. I'm sorry, but basically 78% of services. So, and I guess my FCPH is just not marketing, but we're through our marketing services and training our clients who are developing their skill, so our employers will, future employers have
a need for them.
Good morning, Mr. Pursuit. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
How you doing, sir? Quick question. I noticed that based on your application, you have one employee, and you rightly show that, 30-some thousand possible needs in the promise zone at least. And so I'm trying to find out, how do you plan to carry out, and sound like you have an ambitious agenda, but how are you plan to carry it out with one staff member now? And also, a lot of times you need volunteers in order to carry out these types of programs. I didn't see too much on that. So can you just expound a little bit? Again, you have an ambitious agenda, which is good, but we also need that manpower. So how are you gonna carry out this program with that limited manpower, it appears?
Good question. We were program and things really to utilize. Also partnering with different agencies within the Promise Zone and different advocates that we can utilize their resources to be able to implement the program. Yes, we are short-staffed, but we do have the understanding, being as though I do own a staffing company. I'm very direct in finding the right for different companies. So I'll utilize that, the resources that I have to help this program grow.
Okay, thank you.
So we're down to about our last 4.5 minutes, and I just want to touch on your budget and your proposed fiscal year budget, which seems very ambitious at the over $400,000 in revenue. Have you already secured the state and federal funding?
No, we haven't, and we are looking, as Ms. Waddell spoke to you earlier before, of registering and also procuring different grants and funding. We're hoping to boost, advertisement up to where we can make our company and our organization known, which we can hopefully bring in more. We're looking to also partner with those in the community that we found do have a passion in our sector for the homeless. So we're hoping to gain some type of footing and some type of momentum very soon, and really reaching out for funding dollars that we need to get going.
And I'm so sorry to take up so much time. On the same budget, your other income, it's listed as publication for $36,000. Can you explain what that is? It's listed as miscellaneous income.
Oh, yes, that is dealing with our advertising publications. F, FCPH is partnering with Business Tally Eats.
Yes, those are publications. Once again, I was speaking on the advertisement to get the word out there about the company and to gain some type of footing. So those would be publications and advertisement to reach out to the community and also gain some type of awareness, you know, through billboards, commercials, and etc. to help sponsorship and also to uh, current agencies that will definitely be able to, you know, become a advocate for our.
I have one final question if we have time. What is the demand for your type of work? Because I noticed that on page 25 of your application, you spoke about having the individuals do work in terms of flyers and marketing programs. So, what is the level of demand that would sustain that type of work for your clients?
Well, the advertising and market where every marketing in their company, being as though this is the part where companies look to find new customers, grow their business, and also become, you know, community or shop local to be able to continue to help these companies, especially during this time where a lot of their money has slowed up. So a lot of the marketing and advertising will go to helping them and also to grow their company. So I believe that always be a need, and it always be a need for those that are homeless that are looking to find employment to get a foot in the door.
Great. Our time is up. I want to thank you guys so much for being with us today and going over all of our questions regarding your program.
Thank you guys so much.
So as they talk about COVID, it's nice because we have some agencies that have multiple programs, along with maybe the Promise Zone. But we want the question specifically about how will you implement this program that you're proposing, particular with new programs that's going to even be more tougher reach. But how are you going to implement this program under the current conditions, and how and when we say implement it, make it successful in reference to the outcomes that you're anticipating?
Okay.
And that's for any of these programs.
outline the process for today. So I'm going to start first with my introduction. My name is Marilyn McGee. I work for Florida State University, and I've been a part of the Citizens Review team for 5 years. Now I'll turn it over to Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee Gatson, Leon County Schools. I'm a community advocate with CHP for 6 years.
Marie.
Hi, my name is Marie Bryant. My name is Marie Bryant. I work for Whole Child Leon, and I actually been on CHSP review team for 3 years.
Thank you. Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Meadows with Florida Virtual School, and I've been on the review board for 3 years.
Thank you. James.
Good morning, James Madura Jr., City of Tallahassee. I've been with the review team for 1 year and I have 15 years of grant experience.
Thank you. Yubi.
Good morning. I'm Yubi Brantley, work for the state of Florida Department of Management Services, and I've been with the review team for 3 years.
Thank you. Crystal.
Hi, my name is Crystal Peltier. I'm with the Earl Bacon Insurance Agency. I've been on the CHSP team for 7 years now. I will also be your timekeeper today. You guys will have 20 minutes for questions and answers. And prior to your time starting, we'll ask that you guys do brief introductions and limit it to just your names and your roles within your agency. And then after that is done, we'll kick it over to Dr. McGee, who will start off with our questions.
I have 2 critical members of the team who are still in the waiting room, and I just texted with Virginia about that. Virginia, do you see them?
I have Marie Vandenberg. I have Arun who's in the room. I have yourself, and then I have Karen Frost as registered.
You should have Kelly Manders and Adrian Capeless as confirmed for this session.
Not according to WebEx. So what it's going to do is it's going to leave them in there because they weren't sent an invitation.
I'm Sylvia. I'm the executive director of the Big Bend Homeless Coalition, and with me is Karen Frost, our board president, and Arun Donarajan, our director of finance and administration. And I'd like each of them to just speak so we can confirm their sound.
Hi, I'm Arun. I'm the director of finance with Big Bend Homeless Coalition.
Arun, if you could text with Rebecca to let her know the problem, I'd appreciate that because I want to be able to listen to the panelists' question.
All right. Is that the entire team?
Well, we're missing the founder and program director, but we're gonna, and we have confirmation email.
Sylvia, you can have them call in, but if they're not registered on WebEx, it's not going to let them in.
So they could call in.
Yeah, you can give them the call-in info, and they can get in that way.
Is that on the confirmation email, Virginia?
Yes, ma'am. If you give me just a second, I can send it to you through the chat. So that way they're not delayed anymore.
All right. Did Karen have a moment to introduce herself?
I'm sorry, can you hear me? This is Karen Frost. I'm the president of the board for Big Bend Homeless Coalition.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and ask the first question because we have an interest in hearing about how COVID-19 has impacted your program, this program specifically, and how you will be able to implement it in the Promise Zone. So if you could share that with us and try to keep it brief to 5 minutes or less.
Absolutely. Starters, the application that
Rebecca Kelly Manders
has joined the meeting.
Hello.
Rebecca?
I apologize for the technical difficulties.
You're just in time for me to answer the first question and pitch it to you for a little bit, maybe 2 minutes of detail. So the answer to the first question has to do with COVID, and with regards to the application that is pending, the main thing I wanted to convey is that we don't have any changes to the application or the deliverables or the program model. Obviously, we've made a number of changes to delivery of both food services and instructional services to comply. And Rebecca, they'd like to hear just a minute or two about how COVID has impacted the program delivery as well as outreach to the Promise Zone and to people from the Promise Zone who might be eligible and interested in the program.
Absolutely. So the main impact that COVID has had to our program is, we've implemented some procedures during the day for when students come in, but as far as taking temperatures and making sure that they're mindful and wearing masks. But as far as our deliverables are concerned, we were able to place all 5 of our graduates from our last class that started in the midst of the pandemic.
Adrian Paceless has joined the meeting.
And all 5 of those graduates are currently placed. It has affected our ability to do person-to-person outreach. So we're relying a little bit more on our such as probation officers and people who work in the detention center to relay information to potential students. And then we are doing phone interviews rather than face-to-face interviews with people, and trying to accommodate as many students as we possibly can, while at the same time eliminating as much face-to-face contact before they become enrolled as possible.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to turn the floor over to my team so that they can ask any questions that they have. And then I would just ask that if you're not speaking, if you could place your phone on mute to sort of block out the background noise so everyone can hear.
Question, and I'm going to jump right into your proposed budget. I'm looking at this. I don't see where you guys are seeking any state or federal funding or any grants or fundraising outside of the catering for the Refire program. Is there a reason why?
Let me start with that and then kick it to Arun and to Rebecca. This is a program that Rebecca started entirely from donated funds, and then we secured our first grant award from the United Way of the Big Bend. This would be our second grant award for substantial expansion. And Arun, do you have anything about the budget materials that they've received that we need to explain with regard to that?
Not really. It's just like you said, since it's such a new program, we're starting slow, and we wanted a bit before we can apply for a lot of these grants is we want to have some data and some history, and Rebecca can speak to that, to the data that we've captured. Because in order to apply, as you know, for a lot of these grants, you have to have that data history. So it's in the plans, but we're kind of doing it very staged and very purposefully. Rebecca, you can add to that.
And if you could share some of the grants you've got on your horizon, Rebecca, because I know you watch for state and federal opportunities.
Yeah, so aside from our catering income, we do usually have an annual fundraiser, and that's usually done in May, which was obviously impacted by COVID this year, so we've had to cancel our annual fundraiser. As far as federal grants, most of them are grants that we would have to be a part of to a larger organization. For example, there was a reentry, a $1 million reentry grant from the Federal Bureau of Prisons that the Leon County Sheriff's Office applied for, and we were working with them to try and be a sub-grantee of that. Most of the federal funding for programs like ours come at that level where you have to work with other organizations. But
The other problem, as Arun alluded to, was that we didn't have any outcome data because our program did start in 2017. But now that we have a substantial amount of outcome data showing that our program is having a positive effect on recidivism and on employment, we are able to apply for more of these grants. One of the grants that Sylvia mentioned that I keep an eye on is the J.M. Kaplan Fund, which is a grant that's offered nationwide out of New York. And that is a $150,000 grant. That cycle is every 2 years, and we applied for it in the previous cycle, which was 2019. We were not selected, but that's one of the grants that we will continue to keep an eye on. And then there is a second chance grant from the Department of Justice that I do keep an eye out for to see if we can meet their qualifications for their data, because the data that they want several years of outcome data, and now that we're now in our 14th cohort, so we do have some of that substantial data that they're looking for to be able to try and acquire those grants as well.
In terms of leveraging grant funds, we do leverage a substantial amount of funds from Career Source Capital Region. They're a major funding partner. And we've been invited by Representative Alexander to keep an eye on some state replication or funding models. So the program definitely has the interest of a variety of funding partners and for future leveraging.
Great, thank you. I have another question regarding the Refire program and its current existence and how you're separating that from specifically targeting the Promise Zone area residents. How are you going to keep those two separate so that it's, so that we know that we're funding specifically for the Promise Zone versus just for the Refire program as a whole?
Well, what we do is on our intake for every student is we collect that data, and 50% of our students come from the 32304 zip code. So that is something that we track internally, and we can make sure that the funds that we're allocating are going to those students specifically, and keeping our class numbers high and keeping our enrollment up based on where we're getting the applications from. And I would, as I mentioned, 50% of our students in this data set came from that 32304 zip code. So I don't think it's going to be an issue for us as far as making sure that we're utilizing the funding for Promise Zone. Rebecca Kelly-Manders
has left the meeting.
She'll be back. Arun, did you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I have a question. With the service industry being affected by COVID, do you still see yourself reaching that 60% of the graduates being employed soon, or do you have other partners that could assist in that graduates getting jobs?
Adrian, Rebecca dropped off. I can answer that, or maybe you can.
I will say that, our cohort, not this past one, but the one that started at the beginning of COVID, it was somewhat of an issue. There were a lot less jobs that were available. However, that's actually changed, and we've been able to employ 100% of our cohort that just graduated. So there actually have been a lot more food service jobs, but CareerSource has also been assisting us when we have had a student that has struggled with job placement.
What Rebecca has shared with me is that because the industry laid off everyone, there's actually been a heightened demand for new hires, especially trained hires. Now, of course, there's a little bit of flux in the industry right now as a result of restaurant closures this past week, but the diversity of demand, she's expressed there's a diverse demand from, because there's such an increasing takeout, and even grocery store deli takeout has exploded. So there's food service work in sectors outside of the straight ticket restaurant table service. People still don't want to cook 7 days a week. They just are getting their pre-made food in different ways. So I know I've talked with her about this as well, and she is not concerned. She is locked out though, Virginia. I don't know if there's a way to let her call back in. Thank you.
If I'm understanding you correctly, then as you're saying, Sylvia, and I think Adrian, you had once they graduate from the program, you are still finding that they can be employed full time. Is that because of the partnerships you've had with different restaurants, delis, you know, even Publix?
Rebecca Kelly Manders.
Is that it?
Has joined the meeting.
I'll start to answer this, and maybe Rebecca can chime in. But you know, Rebecca is a classically trained chef with a long history in the industry in the local community. She was the founder of the Tallahassee Food Truck Association, and before that, she was the manager of a couple of different large chains. And she knows a lot of chefs, so there's extensive job placement relationships. We don't depend on Career Source Capital Region to find those vacancies. We have her direct network along with Adrian's work in placement. So yeah, we are a job training and job placement program, and we track placement very closely. If you look at the objectives and outcomes in the application, they're extremely aggressive, and that's because we have the data from the past 16, 17, or 18 classes, cohorts, to ensure us that we can continue that level of placement success. And you'll see a lot of marks of measurement along the placement, whether it's, you know, we follow up throughout the job placement. Anything else about job placement in just a minute or two, Rebecca? I know they have other questions. We got to keep moving, but I did my best.
No, I appreciate that, and I'm sorry, I don't know what happened with the phone. It just dropped me out. As Sylvia mentioned, I've been in the Tallahassee area for 16 years now. I'm a classically trained chef, and I have established a lot of relationships with restaurants and other hospitality organizations throughout Tallahassee. I've placed students at a lot of locally owned places where I have those relationships, like Gain Street Pies, Madison Social, Vertigo Burger, and Grove Market with David Gwen. So the students are getting placed in places where their ability to grow also exists.
Hi, I have two questions in terms of your short-term goals. And one of them was 80% of the students enrolled will be retained through week 4. And according to your data, 68% were retained. Can you give us some idea of what happened here in terms of retention and not meeting that goal?
Absolutely. We only had a 68% retention rate through the fiscal year 18-19 data that we, because we the lone wolf, to be quite honest. I'm not a trained social worker, but I do the best that I can. And since we've brought Adrian on as our case manager in October of last year, our retention rate through week 4 is actually closer to 100%. It's in the high 90s. Most of the students that dropped in the fiscal year 18-19 in that first 4 weeks, some of them dropped to negative contact with law enforcement. Either they violated their probation or reoffended. And some dropped for other life issues, childcare or transportation issues. And all of these things are things that Adrian, and I think Adrian can speak to it a little bit, are things that Adrian works with our students on now to provide them resources to help them stay in the program and complete the program successfully.
So essentially, when this program launched, we knew it needed instruction as well as case management, but we weren't able to put case management into the program mix until we received our first grant funding, which was the United Way funding effective October 2019. And the results of that investment have been quite evident. And you'll see those in the reporting of the 19-20 year when it closes. It's just, as we know, in social services, we need that wraparound component. And we had, when we work with a new student, they are often dealing with childcare, transportation, housing, health, just a myriad of reentry issues that are beyond kind of training for work. And now that we have in-house wraparound supportive services. We've seen the positive effect of that.
Well, that's great. And piggybacking on what Dr. McGee said, I noticed that you're expanding or expect to expand your program from 26 to 50. So that's basically doubling your the number of students, which is great. But then piggybacking, I remember in your application you had housing and transportation with some of the barriers. So you said it seemed like you just hired somebody to try to mitigate those issues, but still to increase 50%, almost double that. What specifically are you going to do in order to meet that threshold? Because
Rebecca, do you want to hit that?
Also, we're down to our last 4 minutes.
Okay. So just quickly, and Adrian, if you'd like to chime in on this as well, we have worked to establish relationships with partners in the city, such as Noah's Ark and Westgate and other low barrier housing situations to help have those resources to be available. And we also have worked into our budget to help provide bus passes, since the Kearney isn't distributing them right now. But the ability to double, we have the applications, we have the people who need this program, and I don't think that filling the spaces won't be a problem. And I think that being able to address their other issues outside of education and job placement. I think Adrian, can you speak to that on on your plans, our plans for working on that going forward?
I would say just, on my end, it's making sure that I'm meeting the student as quickly as possible and finding out their need as quickly as possible. And so for me, it was, implementing more case management assessments so that I could understand the barriers that students face when they're coming into the program on their first day, and then trying to follow them and making contact with them multiple times a week, at least once a week, to follow up with them. And in doing that, I feel like I have been able to find more resources. And I mean, of course, honestly, housing is a barrier in our community, and I can't solve that issue. But I can link my clients to resources, and I have found some agencies that have been helpful in that way. Do I wish that there were more? Of course. But there have been some successes that we've had in doing that. And so, moving forward, it's going to be more, making more connections and hoping that those barriers don't impact our students as much.
And just very concretely, the budget asks to add an additional part-time instructor to support the doubling of instruction, and it takes the part-time position that Ms. Adrian is in and makes it full-time. So it's accomplished through staffing up to meet that higher capacity inflow, exit, job placement, and the budget is specifically designed with the personnel to achieve that. Thanks for that. That's all very good questions. Thank you.
And I just have one final question if we have time, Crystal. Just to ask, in terms of the Promise Zone, are there any needs, especially going forward, that they may have that the rest of the population that you serve will not?
You guys have about 1 minute.
Well, one of the things we're really excited about, if we can be funded in this group, is collaboration with the other grantees within this category. We know that's a part of how the Promise Zone funded agencies are expected to function. In terms of additional needs, we're very familiar with the students' needs from the Promise Zone, given that 50% of our current students are already coming from the Promise Zone. So we feel quite ready to meet their needs. What makes Refire special is that it is a peer-led program. Not to tell Rebecca's business, but since we've only got 30 seconds left, this program is designed by somebody who has been in this experience, and this industry and this training is what has stabilized her life trajectory. And this is all about giving back. Specifically as a result of knowing exactly what the experience is of facing a.
Thank you guys so much. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we are out of time. Thank you, everyone.
Working it as best we can. Thank you. Rebecca. Rebecca and Adrian, sorry we couldn't see your faces.
Arun
has left the meeting.
Rebecca Kelly Manders.
Has left the meeting. A participant has left the meeting. A participant has left the meeting.
You only have 5 minutes, and then for waiting on the Providence, AKA program, Providence program. So if you need a break, now's the
Juanita
time.
Williams.
Has joined the meeting.
Hey, Miss Juanita, I'm going to move you to the lobby until your start time is at 11 o'clock, okay?
No problem.
We better see your face, Anita.